She was the Navy's deadliest sniper, retired, decorated, untouchable. But tonight, she walked into a room full of admirals in handcuffs. Every medal she'd earned mocked by chains. And when the admiral spoke, the entire hall froze. What he said left the room in silence. The chandeliers glowed like captured suns. Glasses clinked, laughter rose and fell, uniforms gleamed. The annual Navy Heritage Banquet was supposed to be safe, predictable, a celebration of valor carved into history. Then the doors opened. 2 military police entered, boots hammering the floor like distant gunfire. Between them walked Emily Watson. Her wrists were bound. Gasps spread across the hall like sparks racing dry grass. Young recruits blinked in disbelief. They had studied her in manuals, whispered her name as proof the impossible could be done. Emily Watson, the woman who survived Hell Week, who lay 48 hours motionless in jungles, who pulled impossible shots from a mile away, now in chains. The clink of her cuffs rang louder than the applause that once followed her. She didn't stumble, didn't bow her head. Her stride was even, measured, yet every step was betrayal, not of herself but of the Navy that had once raised her on its shoulders. On a nearby table, a broken watch lay forgotten beside a half-drunk glass. Its frozen hands pointed to a past no one could touch. Emily saw it just for a second and wondered if time had stopped for her too. Whispers turned into currents. She disobeyed. She refused the order. She let him live. No one dared say his name. The MPs led her past admirals whose medals glittered like shields, past captains who had once saluted her, past sailors who had dreamed of shaking her hand. She gave them nothing. No shame, no defense, only silence sharpened into steel. The chandeliers above seemed colder now, their light stripped of warmth. The hall was no longer celebration. It was a stage and she, the unwilling actor. They stopped at the center. She lifted her chin. Her wrists burned from the bite of steel, but her eyes never wavered. Then the door at the far end opened again. Silence collapsed into something deeper than silence. Admiral James Harrington entered. The room forgot how to breathe. The Admiral's steps were precise. Each click of polished shoes carved tension deeper. He didn't look left or right. His eyes searched for only one person, Emily. For the first time since the cuffs closed on her, Emily shifted her head ever so slightly. Not shame, not deference, recognition, they had history. The crowd parted without being told. Whispers swelled like a tide against glass. That's Harrington. He signed her orders. He knows. Emily's mind pulled back, not to this ballroom, but to deserts where rifles grew heavier with dust, to jungles where leeches clung to skin, to frozen ridges where wind carved flesh raw. She had survived all of it, yet this silence felt heavier. Harrington stopped just feet from her. The space between them hummed like a live wire. "Commander Watson," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. The title hit the crowd like shrapnel. He hadn't stripped it away. "Not yet, Admiral," Emily answered. One word, steady, bare. The MPs stiffened, gripping her arms harder. But even they sensed it. This wasn't prisoner and captor. It was something far more dangerous, a confrontation of equals. Harrington studied her face like a battlefield map. Her silence unnerved even him. "This isn't about chains," he said finally, low enough that only those near could hear. "It's about choices." The room tilted as though gravity itself had shifted. Recruits stiffened. Veterans lowered their eyes. Everyone knew the weight behind those words. A symbolic object caught Emily's eye again. A dusty road traced into the marble by someone's shoes. It looked like the trails she once followed into villages where orders and morality never agreed. Her heartbeat stayed calm. Snipers always counted heartbeats. 1, 2, breathe, hold. "Do you understand why you're here?" Harrington asked. Emily's lips barely moved. "Yes, sir." Emily's voice carried low, but every ear strained to catch it. "My last mission. A desert city crumbling under militias. My orders: locate, confirm, eliminate. High-value insurgent. Blood on his hands, enough to drown a river." She could see it even now. The dust rising. The sun bleeding into stone. "I had him in my sights. Distance 912 meters. Wind steady. Trigger ready." The recruits leaned forward, their breath locked. Then I saw them. Her words hardened. "Civilians. Herded onto the rooftop with him. Women, children, human shields." Gasps cut the air. The order came. Fast, cold. "Take the shot." Her gaze locked on Harrington. He didn't move, but the flicker in his jaw betrayed memory or regret. I had a choice: obey and kill them all, or refuse. Emily's cuffed hands lifted slightly, chains clinking. I lowered my rifle. The hall reeled. Some whispered fury. She disobeyed. Others whispered awe. She saved them. Her voice sharpened like glass. I've pulled more triggers than I can count. Every face stays. Every shot stains. But that night, if I had fired, I would not be living with it. I'd be buried under it. Silence choked the room. She saw a young ensign gripping his glass too tightly, knuckles pale. He was realizing war wasn't manuals. It was choices. Her eyes found an empty wallet on the edge of a nearby table. Someone had left it behind. Hollow, stripped. That was her career now, emptied by one refusal. Emily faced Harrington again. So yes, I disobeyed. That's my crime. That's my truth. Choices, Harrington said, his voice carrying like a slow drum. That's what this comes down to, choices. He let the word hang. It pressed on every chest like weight added to stone. Without orders, there is no discipline. Without discipline, no survival. But down his eyes swept the room. There are choices no oath prepares you for. He began to pace. Each step echoed like a verdict. Commander Watson made a judgment. She defied the chain of command. She broke it. And yet she saved lives. The paradox snapped the hall in two. Some shook their heads, furious. Others stared, trembling with something close to admiration. She is guilty, Harrington continued, and she is honorable. Both truths exist. Both will follow her forever. The recruits stared as if the ground had shifted beneath them. The veterans sat heavier, remembering nights when orders clashed with humanity. Then Harrington lifted his hand. Remove her cuffs. The clink of unlocking metal rang louder than gunfire. Emily rubbed her wrists but raised no fist of triumph. She simply stood taller. The broken watch caught her eye again, still frozen, still pointing at a moment no one could fix. Do not forget this night, Harrington said, sweeping the room with his gaze. Because one day each of you will face your own impossible choice. The applause began hesitant, then swelled like a tide breaking rocks. The banquet ended, but Emily's story had only begun. Outside, the air was sharp, carrying the salt of the nearby sea. The base was quiet, yet she felt watched. Whispers trailed her, not from the hall, but from shadows along the road. Dust clung to her boots. A voice low from behind. You should have pulled the trigger. She turned. A man in civilian clothes, face hidden by the glow of a cigarette. He flicked ash onto the dusty road. Who are you? She asked. Someone who remembers the bodies you didn't make. His tone dripped venom. The one still out there, breathing, leading, killing. The empty wallet image returned to her mind. Sacrifice, hollow, the cost of mercy. Emily didn't reply. Silence had always been her sharpest weapon, but the man's last words burned. They won't protect you, Commander. Not anymore. She walked on, but the night felt heavier. Back in her quarters, medals lay in a drawer. She didn't touch them. Instead, she stared at her rifle case. It was locked, dust thick on its lid. She placed the broken watch on top. Time might not move for her, but something else was ticking. A knock came at her door. When she opened it, two figures waited in the dark. Not MPs, not officers, civilians, with eyes too sharp to be ordinary. Their words cut through the quiet. Back, Emily studied their faces. Neither smiled. Neither blinked. They weren't recruiters. They were shadows of another kind. This isn't Navy business, one said. This is survival. The other slid a folder onto her table. Dust smeared across its cover. Inside, photos. Blurred, urgent, dangerous. The man she had once spared was alive. Stronger. Surrounded. You could have ended him, one said. Now he's a storm. Emily's pulse stayed calm. A sniper's heartbeat. 1, 2, breathe, hold. She closed the folder. And now you want me to finish what I refused. Neither man answered. Their silence was agreement. Emily looked at the broken watch. Still frozen, she touched it, and for the first time in years wished it would move. Her choices had chained her once, freed her once. Now they asked for another. She remembered Harrington's words. One day each of you will face your own impossible choice. The dusty road outside called to her. The kind that never ends, only shifts direction. She lifted her gaze. If I go on my terms. No chains, no orders, only clarity. The men exchanged a glance, then nodded. Emily Watson, once the Navy's deadliest sniper, once paraded in handcuffs, stood at the edge of another war. Not against enemies alone, but against the weight of her own choices. She picked up the folder, placed the broken watch inside, and stepped onto the dusty road. Time at last began to move again.